Hello friends, welcome back to A Good Life Farm. So we are in the middle of that massive Arctic, what are they calling it? Cold, I don't even know, winter bomb or something. I don't know, they have some sort of crazy name for it this year. Always the drama, right? But anyways, we're in the middle of it, and like many parts of the country, it is bitter cold outside, and we've also been dealing with rolling blackouts, which is lovely, and I could just go off about that, but I'll refrain. That said, I felt like tonight would be the perfect night for just something warm and hearty, soup, stew, chili, something in that family, and I landed on my Tex-Mex Black Bean Chowder. It is really simple to make. It's a ground beef recipe, and because of our rolling blackouts that were in the area, which have ended for the time being, just to be on the safe side, I was going for something really easy tonight, and I pulled out a jar of my ground beef that I already cooked, and I just froze it in pints. So it's already cooked. That would limit the amount of time that I would need the stove to be working, just in case. And so I had that thawing out, and I'm going to make this soup, or this chowder, and so I thought I would bring you into the kitchen while I do it. And assuming, fingers crossed, that the power stays on, as soon as the soup is finished, I'm actually going to make some of my cheddar biscuits, which I have a whole video on that recipe. I don't think I've ever shared this one in a video. I'm pretty sure I haven't, but anyways, that's what's going to be for supper tonight. All of the animals did fine, you know, lots of bedding, straw, extra hay, all that stuff, you know, shelter from the wind. They were good to go. So I'm going to get started making the chowder. And I am changing it up a little bit, kind of adapting to what I have on hand. And so I will share that as we go. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dice up an onion. This recipe calls for a red onion on my website, but to be quite honest, I use these interchangeably. Whatever onion you've got on hand, that's the one that you can use. So I'm just going to go ahead and dice this up. Alright, so while my onions are cooking up, I'm going to dice up a red bell pepper. Now, if you don't have a red bell pepper, you can also use a green or an orange or a yellow one, whatever you got. I just like to use the red one in this particular recipe. And I'm actually going to go ahead and add my pepper in with the onion and let those saute together. And my onion trimmings, of course, go into my bag in the freezer for my next batch of broth. Alright, so now my onion and my pepper are just going to kind of cook here together until they're tender. But while they're cooking, I'm going to go ahead and peel and dice about a pound or so of potatoes. And I've made this with russets, I've made it with red, yellow, gold, you know, golden, Yukon type, whatever you got, it'll be fine. so my onion and my bell pepper are kind of tender now. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add in some more of the ingredients. I'm going to add in my diced potatoes, which this is probably more than a pound of potatoes, but that's quite all right. You know, when it comes to cooking, your measurements don't have to be that incredibly precise, not like it is for baking, because baking is actually more of a science, and you know, you have to be very careful with your measurements, certain measurements with that. All right, we've got in our potatoes. Now I'm going to add in one of these small cans, this is 4 ounces, but something around this size, of diced green chilies. I'm going to add in a quart of broth, and you can use chicken broth or beef broth. I'm going to use beef broth today, even though the recipe on my website calls for chicken. Both of them work just fine. So 1 quart of broth, 4 cups. I'm going to turn my heat up just a little bit there. I want to bring this up to a boil to get these potatoes to start really cooking. We're going to add in the ground beef. Now, of course, if you are cooking this all together, you would just brown your ground beef with your onion and pepper. But since mine is pre-cooked, I'm just going to go ahead and add it now. I'm going to add in some black pepper. About 1/4 teaspoon or so. A little bit of salt. A teaspoon of cumin. 2 teaspoons of chili powder. We're going to add about a cup of frozen whole kernel corn. And then the last thing that I'm going to add right now is 1 standard 15 or so ounce can of black beans that I have rinsed and drained. And then we're going to bring all of this up to a boil. We're going to reduce the heat to a simmer, and we're just going to let this cook together until the potatoes are fork tender. So the potatoes are fork tender now, which means everything else is cooked through as well. And now to make this from a soup into a chowder, I've got 1 cup of half and half here, and to this I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. Now, if you can't do gluten, you can of course use an alternative thickener. You can use cornstarch, arrowroot, tapioca, cassava, whatever one you prefer to use. And I'm just going to whisk the flour into the half and half until it's all mixed together. And then I'm going to pour this into the soup there. And then I'm going to melt in some cheddar cheese, some sharp cheddar cheese. We're just going to give this a minute or so because it'll thicken up as it begins to boil. And that soup was nice and hot, so this will only take just a minute or so. Alright, so my broth has come up to a boil, so that it has thickened up nicely there. Now, if you want it even thicker, you can use more thickener, more flour, or what have you, but this is just right for us. So now I'm going to add in some sharp cheddar cheese that was shredded. And I'm adding in 8 ounces. You can do more, you can do less, whatever you prefer. You know, it's just according to taste. And I'm just going to let this all melt in. And then when I serve this, I'll actually serve it with a little bit of extra cheese sprinkled on top of the bowl. And as soon as this cheese is all melted in, it will be ready to eat. Alright you guys, so that is how you make the Tex-Mex Black Bean Chowder and the cheddar biscuits, which you saw me making, although I didn't share that recipe. I've already done a video on those, but if you would like to make either of these recipes, you could find them both on my website, and I will put a link to those in the video description down below. And while you're there, be sure to check out my 800 other recipes, and don't forget to sign up for my free email newsletter so you never miss a thing. So thanks for joining me here at A Good Life Farm. And Little Miss Bean. My name is Constance, and I'll talk to y'all next time.